Hi guys, greetings from Bulgaria, I am Anton, and in this video we will talk about test reports in Selenium. We will discuss one tool in particular called extend reports. And here is what we will cover. We're going to talk about extend reports and other reporting solutions in general, why they are important. Then we are going to see extend reports in tests, and in details we are going to discuss the many configurations available for you to extend it and customize it. Then there are some specifics when you run your tests in parallel, so we will cover that as well. And in the end of this tutorial, you will know also how to generate extend reports in your Jenkins jobs. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the 𝑨𝒏𝒕𝒐𝒏 channel, hit the ring bell so that you get notified whenever we publish a new video. Also check the 𝑨𝒏𝒕𝒐𝒏 blog because there are many awesome resources there to make you a great engineer. And now, behind me you can see an image of the extend test report, and in a minute you're going to see a much more detailed demo of it. But first, let's discuss what are the test reports in Selenium. Well, Selenium WebDriver is a powerful library for browser automation. Many times we discuss that during the videos. It is not a dedicated test automation library. Therefore, it lacks some of the specific testing functionalities that we need to test our application effectively. And to overcome this, by design, we use it together with native unit testing frameworks like JUnit and TestNG. And as you know, they have like a native support for test reports. But basically, JUnit and TestNG reports don't provide all the necessary information on test suite steps. That's why custom reporting needs to be implemented to make it convenient for all major stakeholders. And to generate custom reports with more test case information, it's important for test automation engineers like us to configure them to be helpful for entire project team. And but for some new to the concept of extend reports, generating them might seem strange at first. In this tutorial, I will explain how to generate extend reports in our Selenium WebDriver tests, and you are going to see many code examples. And of course, test reports are crucial in automation, as they summarize the results of the task and help to visualize it. Automation test report help us to summarize this information to stakeholders and test automation engineers to understand the stability of the test case executed before the product goes live. And a good test automation report should hold various test statistics like the number of automation test cases, number of test cases passed and failed, the percentages of test cases, some kind of graphics, screenshots on failures, and many more. And extend reports is an excellent open source library used for generating test reports and automation testing. It has been widely used much more than the inbuilt reports in JUnit and TestNG, because basically it has these enhanced features and customizations. Also, there are many other tools like Allure, Report Portal. I suggest you to check my other videos on the 𝑨𝒏𝒕𝒐𝒏 channel about them. So, first let me show you an interactive demo. This is a report that we're going to generate together. Basically, this is the extend report that I opened. You can open it offline. You don't need a server or anything. You can attach it to emails as well, or as you will see at the end, we can basically create a button for it in Jenkins, and it will be generated automatically for us. You can see the name of the test, the execution time, some steps, timestamps. We can customize the title in every aspect of it. Also, we can change the theme to be dark or white. And when there are test failures, with a little bit of custom code, we can change here the color of the titles. We can have additional stack traces. We can even attach screenshots on failures. And also you can configure it to contain different categories, and based on them you can further drill down and see the output of the test, whether they failed or passed. And even you have these nice charts here and summary tables. Really great, right? And also you have a search. So this is extent report. Now let's see how to use it in our Selenium tests. First, I'm going to use the tests here are not really important, what we're going to do in our WebDriver test, but basically we're going to use the Selenium Playground, a website built by Lambda Test, for giving you opportunity to train yourself on various aspects of Selenium tests and web tests in general. So I built a few tests here, just clicking some links, verifying some tables, that's all. And also there is a dedicated article called How to Generate Extent Reports in Selenium. Keep in mind that some of the content here is using the previous version of the extent report, so if you haven't migrated there, that's fine, but in the video I'm going to show you the latest greatest code. So as always, you can download the full source code. In the description below you will find a link to the GitHub repo. You can clone it, play with it, it's fully working. This is a Selenium project using JUnit and Maven. As you know, we use Maven to download all of the dependencies. This is our build system. Here I use the latest version of Java. And if you're not familiar with the JUnit unit testing framework, I suggest to check many of my videos on the Lambda Test channel, talking about it and much more details about these dependencies and everything you need to know. But just to keep it simple, I just installed all of the required JUnit and Selenium WebDriver dependencies in the WebDriver manager, which is, as you know, responsible for downloading the proper driver based on your installed browser version. And the most important two dependencies for us in this video are the extent reports. You can get the latest version from the Maven repository website, and this A-Shot library, it's open source library built by Yandex for capturing full page screenshots on any browser. So I'm going to use it directly when we discuss here in the further versions of the code that I'm going to show you how to capture screenshots on failures and how we can attach them to the extent reports. So in the first version, under the package version 0, here this is just a simple JUnit test class holding a few WebDriver tests. As I said, they're not really important, they're really simple. We are just navigating to the Selenium Playground website, finding some element, clicking on it, opening a new web page and verifying the header, that's all. So nothing really complicated. But the thing that we need to discuss now is how actually we can generate and incorporate these extent reports into our into these tests. As you can see here, I declared 4 static variables here. These 3 are as you can see and guess from the name, this is the main object for interacting with extent reports. This is the newest extent reporter that is building the HTML reports, because there are other listeners as well, but this is the newest HTML reporter. And this object extent test, basically this will hold the extent reports information about each specific test. In this particular test class, before all of the tests, I'm reusing the browser and I'm opening and reusing it for each of the tests. Keep in mind that depending on what you want to achieve, you may want to start and close the browser after each test, but this is a matter of preference and whether you want to optimize the tests. but you need to keep this in mind, especially if you run the test in the cloud or in a grid. Now, if we have this simple test, what else? First, we need to initialize the core objects of the extend reporter. The first thing that we need to do is we need to initialize the base object, the main object of the extend report, right? Then we need to initialize the reporter, the HTML reporter, the Spark reporter, as you can see here. So we basically initialize this Spark reporter, and the thing that we provide here is this is the current folder of our tests. We will create a folder called test output, and there we will save our report, and it will be called test report HTML. It's up to you. You can generate with Java code here as a timestamp, a unique name every time. Otherwise, this will be every time it will be basically replaced. And after that, before discussing the different configurations here, we need to attach, we need to call the attach reporter of the main extend reports object, and add this HTML reporter to it. This will basically allow us to generate the HTML report. And we can further customize the HTML report. As I said, we can call this set offline mode. If you want, if you don't have access to the internet, this will allow you to basically, the reporter will hold all necessary JavaScript, CSS files, etc. Otherwise, they will include links to CDNs. You can change the document title, the report name. As I said, you have two themes to choose from, dark and standard. The standard is the white one, or you have a dark one. You can change the format of the timestamp that you see from the right corner, and you can change the encoding. Here it is. Basically, you can change this here. You can change the title, and yeah, it's pretty configurable. Now, what else do we need to do? By the way, if you don't want to repeat this every time, you can put it into XML files. You can check the official documentation of extend reports, but basically you can have extend Spark report config, where in XML format you can set basically this is another type of syntax instead of, you know, using this syntax here. Basically, this is a fluent builder syntax. Also, in order to support, as I said, config files, you can have all the configurations inside XML files. So you need to load the inside a folder called config. You can have Spark config XML. And you need to pass it to the extend report and load as XML configuration. Also, instead of using XML, you can use JSON. It's the same logic. Basically, you load the JSON configuration and pass here where the HTML report will be saved. And just instead of load XML config, you need to call load JSON config. That's all. But for now, I will leave it like this. Now, we have now our test here, and in this version 0, I'm going to not write some complex logic for you know, extending JUnit. You will see what I mean. But now we'll repeat some of the code. So first, our first thing that we need to do is we need to create the test in our extend report HTML. In order to do that, we need to call our main extend reports object, and it provides us with this create test method. It accepts two parameters. The name of the test and some kind of a description, and this returns basically an instance of extend test. So we initialize our static instance of it. Why we need that? Because later we need to mark whether the test passed or failed. And in order to do that without extending JUnit, in TestNG you can check in the blocks of Lambda tests that I showed you before. You can find how to do that in TestNG. But in order to do that in JUnit, it's a little bit more complicated. And in version 1 here, I'm going to explain how to do that. But for now, let's keep it simple. And the simplest way to do that is to wrap this code inside try catch. If this code passed, then we can just at the end mark it like this: extend test.walk, provide this enum status pass, and you can provide some kind of a description that it will be added to the report. But when it fails, in order to detect whether it failed, we need to wrap this inside try catch, and inside the catch we need to mark it as failed and provide some kind of a description like this. So we're doing all of the actions. In case there is an assertion error or something, timeout or whatever, this code will be executed. We'll mark the test as failed. We're providing the stack trace by providing here the throwable, the exception that we call. And also, in order the test to be failed in your Jenkins job or in the Lambda tests reports, you know to throw back the exception as well. I did this type of thing inside of all of the tests, but as you can see, this is a lot of repetition, right? And we don't want to do that. Of course, but before moving on and show you how actually we can simplify the code, and not simplify it, but reuse it so that we don't need to copy paste this and make it so hard to read. We will hide the complexity inside listener classes, but in a minute I'm going to explain what is this. Here I did two things in this particular test about single input. I can walk additional information and additional steps. If your framework supports adding custom steps or whatever, you can basically use this to create some kind of a BDD logging inside the extend reports. And also you can assign these categories that I showed you that you can filter later your tests. You can use this assign category. Let me remind you what this was. When we go, this is these categories, right? When you open them, you will see them here in the left corner, but also later you can filter them like this by these categories, and also you'll have this summary table by categories, which is awesome. If you, for example, you can separate them by continuous integration, nightly run, or by features. It's up to you how to do that. Now, let's discuss version 1. In version 1, we'll see how to improve the code so that we don't have all of these repeating try-catch clauses. In order to do so, I replicated the code, but to be able to do that, we need to implement this test result listener. This is a special class in JUnit. It implements this interface called after test execution callback, and basically there we need to override after test execution. Since we are going to share information between this listener and our tests and other classes, we need to have a common class which holds some of the information. This is why I created this execution context This execution context, it's my name. I mean, you can name it as you wish, but basically, as you can see here, in version 2, we will make this thread safe if you run your tests in parallel. For now, I accept that we are running the tests in a single thread, in a single process. But here we save whether what was the test result. This is enumeration that I created. Basically, it holds for now two values: success and failure. And what else? We hold instance of driver. We will need that later if we want to capture screenshots on failures. We hold the current exception when the test failed, so that we can attach it to the extend report as well. And we have an instance of the current extend test object. And in this event test results listener, the idea behind this code is to set the test result status depending on whether an exception was thrown during the execution of the test or not. If an exception was thrown, the test result status will be set to failure, and the exception is saved for later use. Otherwise, if no exception was thrown, the test result status is set to success. And this listener can be very helpful for generating custom reports or for tracking test results of an automation test suite. And yeah, let's see how we can implement that. Basically, as I said, the thing that I do here is we check whether there is an error. If there is an error, I might mark as failure. I said basically I get the current exception if there are any. Otherwise, I said that this was success. And if we need to use that, in order to use the listener, we need to use this annotation, a JUnit annotation called extends with, and I need to provide the class of it. So don't worry, I will explain in a minute what is this second listener. Basically, this will be our main listener, and we won't use that one. But in order to use them, you need just to provide the test result.class, and basically our JUnit class will execute our logic. So at the end of the test, as you can see here, everywhere instead of the driver and the reporter, I'm using the execution context and its static variables for the current driver and extend test. This way I'm going to share them between the listener and the tests. And at the end, we need to implement the tear down here. What I'm going to do is, let me show you. So I'm going to check using the test info. I will print the current test name and whether it was successful or not. Also, I will check whether the test was successful or not. If it was success, then I will basically call the current extend test object and call its walk method and pass whether it passed or failed with the current exception. In this case, this will be no, so we won't print it. Otherwise, we'll print the stack trace. Of course, now we'll repeat every time this code, so this is not really useful. I will further explain how we can create customizations like this. Let me show you. For example, here, as you can see, the title is green. We have additional steps. On failures, this is red. And also we have additional steps here. But more importantly, we have a screenshot on failure, right? So in order not to repeat this after each and have these failures, let me explain. We can create additional, more advanced listener. And I call this extend test listener. Here it is. We implement this time test watcher. This is again a special JUnit 5 class, and it allows us to override and basically extend further the test execution workflow. In this case, we can execute code directly when the test failed, test was disabled, test was successful or aborted. So we don't need to capture whether, in the after each, whether the tests failed or not. We can do that directly here. This means that if it was successful, we'll just mark status, pass, and notice here that this time I call this markup helper, create label, and I call it with this extend color green. So what we are doing exactly here, mark helper is a class that is used for customizing extend reports by creating labels for tests and adding colors to the test status by using extend color enum. This way we achieved these labels there that was green or red, and also the status will be marked with the proper color. Additionally, when the test failed, as you can see here, we printed here, we created the label. Also, we added the stack trace, the cause, the throwable. The throwable is the actual exception, how our test failed. And we have additional method called capture screenshot on failure. The thing that we do here, if we zoom in, is I'm using the eShot library. You can find it here on GitHub. Again, this is open source library by Yandex. We get the current instance of the driver. So yeah, basically we need to initialize the eShot. There are different strategies, and as I said, there are many configurations. We generate what will be the name of our file, where to save it. We use image.io to save the file on the file system, and then we just basically the current extend test object, it has a method called add screen capture from path, and we need to call screenshot file get absolute path to attach it to the HTML report. If there are any exceptions here, of course, we don't want to fail our test because the screenshot failed. This is why I wrap it in a try catch. And as you can see, I'm doing that only on test failures, so I'm not doing it every time. What else? When you execute your tests in Lambda test, pretty much everything stays the same when you execute your tests in the cloud. We are initializing the extend report the same way in before all. The difference is how we initialize the actual driver. Instead of using Chrome driver, now I'm using all of the capabilities that you can get from the capabilities website of Lambda test. Then we run it, that's all. By the way, if you remember and watch one of my videos about WebDriver Listener, if you haven't, check it out, it's really awesome. And basically WebDriver Listeners, if you have used them, and probably you know, they provide a way how we can extend our WebDriver tests, and basically we need to implement WebDriver Listener, and it allows you to override many different methods for hooking up. For example, before element was found, before navigating to a URL, or in this case when there is an exception. And the thing that this will do is it will get from the test exception, from how the test failed, it will get the stack trace here as a string. It will send it to the Lambda test. So when you use and when you run your test there, as you know, there you can watch video recordings of failure and many more advanced features. But this will basically provide you the actual stack trace to the Lambda test execution, and also this will mark the actual test in Lambda test as failure. And you can use it together with this JUnit test listeners. In order to use the WebDriver listener, you need to use this event firing decorator, and you need to provide this test failure new Lambda test driver, and in the end in the end, you need to call this decorate WebDriver. After that, the usage stays the same. Now, before we discuss how you can generate extended reports in Jenkins, one more thing. If you run your tests in parallel, of course, it's more challenging than that, than what I'm going to show you, because many often we don't use plain WebDriver, but we use some of the test automation frameworks available. So in every framework it will be slightly different. They have their own integrations with extended reports, but basically you need to keep in mind that when you use these static variables for the driver and whatever, when you run your tests in parallel, you need to wrap them in this thread local container. This will prevent deadlocks to occur when you run your tests in parallel, and they try to use the same objects in different threads. And so everywhere in the tests now, when you use, for example, when you need to initialize that, instead of using equal sign, you need to call this set method, because this is a container, thread safe container, and when you want to get it, you don't use it directly, but you need to add this .get. The next thing that you need to keep in mind is in JUnit, if you want to run your tests in parallel, I suggest you to check my video about JUnit and running tests in parallel. It's a really long and detailed and helpful video that you can find on the Lambda Test channel. But yeah, basically, in order to be able to run tests in parallel, you need to have this JUnit platform.properties file, and you need some options that you can find on the JUnit 5 official documentation. For TestNG, it's almost the same, but there is other resources on the Lambda Test blog and videos. Now let's move to our presentation and discuss how we can generate extended reports in Jenkins. So first you need to log into Jenkins, and you need to click Manage Jenkins. After that, you need to install the HTML Publisher plugin. Once installed, you will see the HTML Publisher plugin in the Install tab. After clicking installing the plugin, maybe make sure to restart the Jenkins, and after that you need to click New Item and create a new project. You need to integrate GitHub or whatever source control you use in order to pull all the source code. In the post-build action section, select the Publish HTML Reports option and the Add Post-build action. In this section, provide the folder name where your report will be generated, the name of the extended reports, and the title of the extended report. Save the changes, click Build Now. You will see a job being triggered within the project, and once the build has been completed, you shall see extended report in the project as highlighted. Click on the extended report, and this will generate the extended report. It will be basically displayed, and yeah, and you can start analyzing. So let's wrap up. Selenium is a powerful tool for test reporting, but the built-in reports in JUnit and TestNG may not provide all the necessary information for project stakeholders, and this custom reporting is necessary to make the process more convenient for everyone involved. And in this guide, we learned how to generate extended reports in Selenium WebDriver with many code examples. Test reports are crucial in automation because they summarize test results and provide with confidence for going live. Extended reports are one of the best reporting tools for Selenium because they offer report customization, integration with different test frameworks, great data visualization, and much more. We also explored how to generate extended reports in Selenium using Jenkins, which involves installing the HTML Publisher plugin, and after that in the post-build actions to publish the HTML reports. Overall, extended reports offer a pictorial representation of the test results. They're easily customizable, they're open source, making them excellent choice for generating automation test reports. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I will be really happy to answer. Also share your opinion about the video and share your thoughts about next videos that you want to see on the Lambda Test channel. You will find many resources and the source code in the description below. Don't forget to check the Lambda Test blog and to get your certification about JUnit, TestNG, Selenium and many others. And yeah, see you in the next videos. Thank you for watching.